The power of networking and using tools like social media to make sure that you stay connected with your network. It's so easy today. Make sure you invest in your network. They say your network is your net worth. I don't know how much I believe in worrying about your net worth and how many people you know making you great, but I do believe that your network definitely helps you have success in business.
Startups with Stu is a podcast for anyone living or wanting to live the startup life, either as a founder or a team member. Your host, Stuart Draper, was a 9-time Inc. 5000 honoree before age 40. This show dives deep into the exhilarating world of entrepreneurship with guests that are seeking advice from Stu for their startup or business owners that want to share their entrepreneurial journey. Listeners always walk away with actionable ideas of what to do to take their startup to the moon. Startup life can feel like a roller coaster ride. And with Startups with Stu, you're likely to turn your roller coaster ride into a rocket ship ride. Get ready to uncover the secrets to startup success from visionary founders and savvy investors who've transformed groundbreaking ideas into thriving ventures.
It never ceases to amaze me the way that we connect in this world. When I was in college, my freshman year, fresh out of high school, I met a great lady named Catherine, good friend of mine. We got in touch and stayed in touch via Facebook. Years later, she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I saw that you're an entrepreneur and having some success. My husband," this is 2017, I think. "My husband is looking to start a business. He's getting it off the ground. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love for you to talk to him and share what's working, what's not." And I said, "Yeah, I'll hop on a call." So Shane and I met in 2017 and then just stayed connected via LinkedIn, but without talking much to each other. And then just recently, 2024, so 7 years later, I see that he's announced more fundraising for his business, Boostly, which is in the restaurant space. I'll let him tell you more about that. But man, it's good to have you with me today, Shane. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it is fun to see how all those circles align. And, we've kept in touch along the way just very lightly, but we've had probably 2 or 3 interactions, and all of them were very helpful, from one point of asking for advice from an entrepreneur in launching my startup, and then even at different inflection points asking either about a candidate that we were hiring that you knew, or giving advice to somebody in our networks. And so this is a privilege to be here. I'm super excited for the conversation today.
Oh, the power of networking and using tools like social media to make sure that you stay connected with your network. It's so easy today. Make sure you invest in your network. They say your network is your net worth. I don't know how much I believe in worrying about your net worth and how many people you know making you great, but I do believe that your network definitely helps you have success in business. So Shane, tell us about Boostly. You got it started in 2017 and it's been a grind.
Yeah, so we started in late 2017. I had been the head of sales for a company called Jolt. We were a restaurant operations software company. That was my first experience in the restaurant industry, and got a frontline view of the challenges facing these restaurant operators, especially the small businesses. And I'd known that I wanted to start a company someday, and along the way, had a bunch of ideas and started thinking of an idea for restaurant tech. And one day decided, we're just going to go for it, and told Jolt, "Hey, I'm going to leave and I'm going to start a company in a few months. I have a few ideas. We're going to see how it forms." And that was the beginning of Boostly. Really just started hitting the pavement, took my initial idea and talked to a bunch of restaurant owners about their experiences, what they thought about the idea, and really was doing pre-sales along the way until I iterated the idea and started stacking up enough interest to say, okay, this has legs.
Shane, you said that you mentioned the phrase initial idea. And I love that, because as an entrepreneur, right? Like, you have an initial idea and then it has to evolve, because the world evolves as you're working on your business, right? And then another thing that you mentioned that stood out to me was that you gave your notice at Jolt, meaning you had a corporate job had a great corporate job, and you walked away from it. So tell me more about those two things. Like, let's dive into initial idea and the evolution. And then also, and you can decide your order here, all right? But initial idea and evolution, but also what it was like walking away from the corporate job and how your wife got on board with it.
I'll start with that one, and then we'll talk about the idea evolution. I had been a part of a startup, had a chance to experience like a very minor equity stake and what an exit could do. And that made me hungry to be an entrepreneur. But I realized I had more skills that I needed to develop. And I went from that first startup to Jolt with the idea of, can I go and repeat this playbook that I just experienced without the training wheels of my mentors who were the founders of that company? And we were blowing up Jolt. We were going from like 300K in annual revenue to 5 million in a year, and things were just working and clicking. And I had planned to be at Jolt like for 5 to 10 years, take that through an eventual exit, and then go start my own thing. And my wife was actually the instigator of us starting the company. So it wasn't me dragging my wife along. What happened is my wife was also interested in entrepreneurship. She got an MBA at BYU and we had gone through these startup journeys together in the early part of our marriage. And then she's like, hey, I heard about this like startup entrepreneurship boot camp. They're doing like a 2-day thing in St. George. I think it would be a really fun thing for us to get away, talk about entrepreneurship and then come back. And so on a Friday and Saturday, we went down to St. George, and I was like, this is really cool. My wife is interested in entrepreneurship. Yeah. Let's do this.
Romantic weekend of entrepreneurship love. Okay. I like it.
Super romantic. Like, I think we brought her mom and our baby because Catherine was breastfeeding our first kid, our first kid or second kid at the time. We went to that and had some ideas. And as we were going through this 2-day experience, Catherine was like, Shane, you've kind of experienced some of these things at that first startup, and you could do this. And it's like, yeah, but we have a great thing. We have a great thing going for us. We're paid really well. We're socking away savings so that in the future we can start something. Let's keep doing that. And probably a week or two went by, and one day Catherine just asks me the question. She's like, I think that you should quit your job and start just working on this. What do you think? And I said, no way. Like, we need to keep saving. Like, there's so much to do. We have a good thing going. And she's like, no, I really think you should do it. And she asked me the question, like, if God told you to do it, would you do it? And I was like, well, of course. She's like, well, will you pray about it? And like these types of questions. And so,
okay.
So we do, and it's like, well, I don't feel bad about this. I feel like this would be kind of a fun adventure. And so the next day, I set up a meeting with the founders at Jolt to tell them, hey, I'm gonna go start something. I'll give you a 4-month heads up. Like, I'll help train my replacement, hire my replacement, but I'm gonna go start something. And that was my moment of committing to it. And I was just scared sick of like what is going to happen. And then that morning, I'm at work, I'm at my desk, and I get a text message from a mentor of mine, Ron Suber, who had acquired his company Prosper Marketplace had acquired our startup American Healthcare Lending. And I hadn't heard from him in probably like 3 or 4 months, and he sends me this text out of the blue, and it's of this quote on his desk. And I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, to not forget that risk can be an adventure, and even if something doesn't go according to plan, just the trying of it causes you to become a better person. And that just hit me, and I was like, this is giving me the validation of this is what I needed to do. And it gave me the confidence to have that conversation later on in the day. And I think a month later, we wrapped up things at Jolt, and we went on a 2-week vacation. And then I came back and just hit the ground running of validating the initial concept that I had.
That is Such a cool evolution of deciding to leave, and so rare, folks. Like, find yourself a woman that wants to talk you out of your corporate job so you can start a business, because that's unique. How cool of Catherine. And so she convinces you to do this. You decide, and well, she convinces you to ask God if you should do it. You ask God, and God says, Shane, you need to do this. And it's like pushing you out of your comfort zone, which I think God likes to do with us. But that's a cool story. And then from there, you've told Jolt you're leaving, and they're like, yeah, okay. Did they pay you for 4 more months? Did it work out? They needed you that long?
No, so we ended up deciding to just wrap it up at the end of like a 4-week period.
Was that like an oh crap moment because you're like, whoa, I thought I was going to be able to get 4 more months of pay. Now I'm only going to get 4 more weeks of pay? Or was that like, actually, that's nice because I need to get going?
No, I felt great about it. And something about me, this is just how my brain has always ticked, is I wouldn't feel good like moonlighting a startup while working. It's like if I'm working somewhere, they're going to get all of me. They're going to get all of my mental effort. They're going to get all of my time and attention, even if it's the thinking at the middle of the night. Like, they get everything from me. And I'm always either all in or I'm all out. And so I knew that I wanted to have a very clean break. I wasn't going to work on a startup while being at Jolt. And that was important to me. And the other side of me has always been, I just tend to put my back against a wall and I have to fight to survive. And that causes me to innovate and to win. And this was one of those moments where I knew if I'm stopping my job, I'm going to be just working on that job until the bitter end. And then I'm going to start working on the next thing. And so in that way, I had a clean cut. The financial incentives are for me to make the startup work. My back's against a wall. We're living off of savings, and we had planned to just live off of savings for a year and see where this takes us.
Kind of like that was your runway. You gave yourself 12-month runway. Good for you saving, by the way, to get yourself in a position to do that.
And that was a very intentional thing from like the startup before. We started stacking money saying, I want to be an entrepreneur someday, but in order to do that, we need to have savings. So we kept trying to intentionally live like peasants, not let lifestyle creep bring our expenses up, and just sock away savings. And I was really, blessed to be able to do that and take this type of risk early on in my life and career. And that led us to the point where it's like, okay, it's go time. We have an initial semblance of an idea, and like the initial idea was to have essentially a marketplace app where you could order online for all the local restaurants. It would also track all of the loyalty programs for those restaurants in the single app, and the restaurant could push like different marketing messages back and forth, and the consumer could toggle on and off who they want marketing messages from. That was like the initial idea, and went out, and the whole validating process for me was, let's see if this really ticks with the restaurants. Is it something that's valuable to them? Would they pay for it? How much would they pay for it? Would they be willing to pay, like sign an early commitment now and showcase how much they want it? And initially I was getting a lot of like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, but how many consumers are on your app? Well, none today. We need the restaurants to attract the consumers. And I was interviewing like consumers about their interest in that type of app, restaurants, and I had the classic chicken and egg problem. And so what we ended up doing is I met with a local pizzeria, and they said, well, I wouldn't do anything until you have a bunch of users. But we opened up a few months ago, and we have all these free pizza coupons. And I was like, well, hey, could I take those to the local campus, and I'll drum up people to come to your restaurant? And this will be like in lieu of the marketplace. I'm going to bring you business. I'm going to bring the consumers, and in exchange, we're validating this together. And they're like, sure. They gave me a stack of like 200 free pizza coupons. And I went to the local universities and just pounded the pavement in exchange for them completing a validation survey and joining our mailing list. I gave them a free pizza coupon. The restaurant saw those going. That built up some validity with the restaurant. But I still had this overall chicken and egg problem, and realized it was going to take way more capital than I wanted to launch this type of product. And so I decided I'm going to scope this down. And what if we were just a direct online ordering vendor for the restaurant? They throw us up on their website and we build some marketing into that system so that we're using the customer data to drive people back and collect some feedback.
Yeah.
And I started getting pre-sales. And this was probably after every validation interview, I changed my deck, I changed my idea, I went back and made different prototypes. And eventually, after a handful of iterations, we landed on that one. I started getting some pre-sales where, I would say, hey, we're going to charge you a setup fee and the first month, and I'll give you X number of months for free after that. You don't have to pay us until we actually deliver you the product, but you have to give us payment information right now. And by the way, I'm only giving this to 10 people. And so if you want to do it, you should do it now. And people
created some urgency. Yeah.
Yeah. People started taking us up on that. I also went to a potential competitor's website and saw that there was a local, one of their customer testimonials was a pizzeria in Salt Lake City. And I was in Provo about 45 minutes out. So I cold called and set up a meeting with them, and I pitched them this idea of online ordering with all these marketing tools. And they're like, oh yeah, that's way better than what I have now. I'll sign up for that. And that validated this to the point where I'm like, okay, we're really onto something. I need a co-founder. I need to find someone who can not only build the technology, but build the business with me. And started interviewing for co-founders, going to the JavaScript meetups and hijacking the microphone in the beginning and saying, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I'm building. I'm going to be in the back corner. I'd love to talk to you if you're interested in co-founding.
Yeah, you legit did that, by the way? You legit hijacked the mic?
I legit would people are just talking and I just go up and grab the mic before everyone started while everyone's walking in. And I started talking to a ton of different developers, and eventually I was struggling to find a co-founder. One of my mentors posted about my story and what we were working on, and I got introduced to my current co-founder, Mikey, and towards the end of 2017, we officially co-founded the company, built an MVP, launched it a couple months later, and kept doing sales. And then we pivoted several times along the way. So you talk about initial ideas. It was initial idea to first customer, and then initial idea from first customer to actual first product. And then first product, we ended up pivoting totally away from that. And we've probably built 4 or 5 different products that we've validated through the years until we finally really landed on what we're doing today, which we were able to start scaling. And so the today's version, which you can compare to that initial marketplace plan and the online ordering, is we are an SMS marketing hub for restaurants. So you think of your favorite local pizzeria chain of 1 to 5 locations, they would use Boostly to take all of their customer data and build a textable marketing club. And then we take all the behaviors of those people and send them offers and promotions to drive them back in, and do the marketing based on the behavior of the individual, not just mass marketing to everybody. And that's what we do today.
Okay. So restaurateurs, if you're looking for help with your marketing for your restaurant, Shane's your guy. He's got the stuff for text message marketing for your business. I love it. So what has the sales journey been like, growing the sales team? How many team members are there now at Boostly?
Yeah, so currently our team, we have a little over 30 people on the team, and about half of those are sales. Now I was a sales leader. My career has been built on scaling up these outbound sales teams selling B2B software to SMBs. And you would think that we would have this really massive, robust sales team like all through the years, but that wasn't the case. We started this year with 2 account executives doing demos and like 3 SDRs making cold calls. And that's literally the size that got us to about 2 million in annual revenue with a pretty light sales force. In scaling this out initially, it was me doing cold call through demo and doing customer success, me as the founder just doing it all. And then as soon as I had a repeatable process, couple months in, I was hiring our first sales development rep to make cold calls and take some of that off of my plate while I could just do more demos and onboard customers. And eventually we prioritized building out cold callers before account executives. Once we had a team of SDRs and I ran out of bandwidth, we hired an account executive. That actually was the impetus eventually for us to pivot, because we realized we hired a really good salesperson and he was just struggling to sell. But I probably just with like the founder magic was pushing this into the marketplace. And we realized this isn't a salesperson problem. It's a product market fit problem. And so we did a full pivot away from what we were doing as a result of that, started building up the repeatable processes again, and got to the point where then we were running into customer success issues. And so we deprioritized sales, fixed the funnel of making the most out of our existing customers. And then we went back to, while we paused sales, we tripled our sales from just existing customers. And then we're like, okay, now we have a real workable thing. Customer success and retention is humming. Now we have the repeatable process for sales. Ladies and gentlemen, we are full steam ahead. We're going to scale this sucker. We're going to go raise capital. And this was like January of 2020. And we're like, this is our year. And so we just start scaling both sales and customer success. And we were feeling great until March 18th comes. COVID hits. Restaurants are shutting down all over the country. We think we might go out of business and lose all of our revenue. And that didn't happen. But that, again, paused our go-to-market strategy. We said selling to restaurants right now is not a great idea on our marketing product.
Yeah.
So we started validating new ideas and new products that could help restaurants and still make us money. And that was our 2020. But in 2021, we started seeing some more interest on the marketing product. So we said, okay, we're going to change our business model and we're going to restart sales from the ground up. And again, that was me and one other person, and we restarted from zero. We built the SDR function again. We started adding account executives, an account executive or two during the year, and the funnel was working. And we doubled revenue in 2021. Going into 2022, we were doubling again, and we were adding more SDRs and just keeping that funnel going. But we kept it as a really small and tight team and just kept growing. And we were bootstrapping through all of this. So we didn't raise any money at the time.
So zero money has been raised still from 2017 through 2022.
Yeah. Yep. And
Dang.
then we feel like, hey, we're at a good spot. We actually want to accelerate our growth. So let's go raise some capital to accelerate growth. And at that point, we were just about to start raising. And we decided, hey, we're also going to apply to Y Combinator. It's unlikely that we get in. We had applied a couple times previously, and with this idea and another idea, like, it's unlikely we'll get in, but hey, that might be a really good thing for us. So we apply, and simultaneously I'm starting to like facilitate introductions for investors, but we got into YC. And so we decided we're not going to fundraise right now. We're just going to go into YC. We'll crank for 3 more months, and we'll raise at the end of the YC batch. And we did that. Y Combinator was an amazing experience. We had some great growth. At the end of the year, we raised like 1.7 million, and then that led to 2023. We doubled again year over year. This year, we wanted to accelerate growth beyond that, so we raised an additional like 3.8 million just recently over the last few months, and are on pace to just continue with that growth trajectory. But that was kind of our growth experience. And so at the beginning of the year, we had 3 SDRs, 2 account executives doing demos. And then now we have 3 account executives, but we have like 10 SDRs. So we've ramped up that side, and it just will keep on scaling throughout the end of the year.
I love that. Folks, one of the things that Shane mentioned in his story was that he needed to find out if it was his sales or his product that was the problem. Because sometimes if you only have one salesperson and they're selling your product and they're not having success, the salesperson's going to say, your product stinks. But if you get a second salesperson and they actually sell really well, then it's not the product, it was the person. So I always recommend, wherever possible, get 2 salespeople at least. Always be able to have an A/B test and see if it's actually a problem of your product or your sales. And so it's going and growing now. If you can, Shane, and if this is something you're like, this needs to stay off record, no problem. Can you share your revenue growth year by year?
Yeah. So in 2018, I think we got up to 10 to 12,000 in monthly recurring revenue. So I mean,
about 140 grand.
Yeah, I call it 140K in ARR. And then at the end of 2018, we decided we're going to pivot, and we I think ended 2019 at around 20K in monthly recurring revenue, so like 240K in ARR. In 2020, we stayed fairly flat. I think we had gotten up to 30K, and then during COVID, it dropped back down to 20.
So you guys are grinding and living pretty frugally, right? In Utah, that's you're talking 120, 240, 240, and you got yourself and no co-founder still?
No, so I had a co-founder at that point in time.
That's right. Yeah. So you're both making money off that.
Yeah, and I wasn't. We set out for me not to be paid for the first year, but that turned into a lot longer. So, and I think by the time we started paying ourselves in like, I think in 2020, our first year was like $10,000. We paid ourselves like $10,000 just to say we were paying ourselves. And I wish, if in hindsight, I wish we hadn't done that. Financially, that put way more stressors on our family and quality of life along the way. So in hindsight, I probably would have done things differently, but we were living.
By the way, how did you do it? Like, I think a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, that would scare the crap out of them. That's going to keep them from deciding to get started. So like, how did you weather that storm of 3 years of basically no income? Your wife working,
no.
Other family members helping, some seed money or angel money? Like what was it?
And again, we were super blessed to be in this position. This is not the position that I think most people have the opportunity to be in when they're a first-time founder. I had the opportunity to make a lot of money through my sales career before starting. And I think when mean, when we started the company in 2017, I was 27. So I was still early in my career, but I had done really well in my career so far.
Had some good paydays.
I had some good paydays doing sales. We had sold American healthcare lending, and I just had like a tiny stake. But we took all the money from that and invested it in a rental property. And by the time we had started the company, I had 2 rental properties and a condo that we were living in, and we were just socking away savings along the way. And so the savings, we kept like eating through that. And at the end of the first, it was like 15 months in, it was like end of 2018, we looked at the company and we're like, well, the company needs more money because we're running out. And the Murphy family also needs more money because we're running out. And so we went and sold our 2 rental properties that we had, and that gave an extra infusion of cash into the business and money for us that we could just keep on burning. But our philosophy was, we are going to live like peasants and, prioritize the company's survival along the way. And we probably did that too much, where it like hurt us and impacted us more than we would have liked. But we had that opportunity and that blessing. Most people don't. And my advice to founders now, having gone through that, is don't just do what I did. If I could do it again, I wouldn't have done it that way. I would have gone after raising a little bit of seed money from angels. I would have insisted on like paying myself earlier, even if it's token amounts, to like extend our runway and our personal burn. But I always felt like I can't do that until the company was profitable. That wasn't reality. And the soonest that you can pay yourself, you should. And when you're pre-product market fit, the founders should really get what you need in order to pay the bills. You're probably not saving money, but pay your bills. Once you get to you're having product market fit and things, you have 2 choices: keep bootstrapping or raise capital. When you raise capital, you can start getting closer to a market like pay range once you're post product market fit. But otherwise, like, be paying yourself, and don't just
1,000%.
Yeah, don't burn the boats and just leave yourself out to dry. The stressors on family and personal life will lead to poor decisions, and the most important thing at the end of the day is going to be, your family. That type of financial stress can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah. So Shane, I love your perspective, because you said that we had the opportunity and the blessing to have this money and nest egg, but that, in my opinion, requires a ton of discipline to have put yourself in that position to have that opportunity and blessing. And so I commend you for that. And I think that you're right. For a lot of founders, the right move is to go get some seed money so that you sleep a little easier. You're still going to stress. It's still going to be hard, but not paying yourself is good for a little while. It can motivate you and drive you and push you, but it also builds a business that is missing something it has to have when it sells later, which is paying a CEO. No new investor wants to buy your business if it can't even afford to pay the CEO. And so figuring out how to get yourself off of, I pay myself a dividend when and where possible out of the business, into the place where you say, no, every month the business pays me because I'm a CEO and the CEO always gets paid, is a really good thing to focus on achieving as a startup. And even if it takes funding to make that happen, that means your business is the type of business that just needs funding. And that's okay. Don't be ashamed of that or think that you're wrong to believe that. I think, by the way, sometimes the Shark Tank mentality of like, oh, like you're taking a salary, like we would never invest in you. Some of that message is a Hollywood message and not so much the reality of most of entrepreneurship land. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think like it's great to be able to show to investors that, hey, I'm sacrificing and things like that. But often when I did talk to angels, they're like, man, that's really incredible and such a cool thing. But just so you know, like, if we give you a little bit of money, like, you need to pay yourself, because I'm worried if you're not sleeping well and if you are in this stressed out range, you're going to make poor decisions with our money. So a lot of investors will actually want you to take some money out of the business as you are raising, because it's going to make you operate better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, let's shift gears. Shane, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, they look at incubators as a great way to get off the ground and get started. You went to Y Combinator, but it wasn't so much as an incubator. I mean, you're talking about you're 5 years into this thing already when you go to Y Combinator. What was that experience like?
Y Combinator was an incredible experience for us for a variety of reasons that I can talk about, but we were a more mature business. When you look at the Y Combinator batches, you have a lot of people who are pre-revenue. You have some that have a little bit of revenue and traction, but we were coming in doing $60,000 a month in revenue. I'm pretty sure when it came to demo day, we were like either, if not the top, the second highest revenue company in our batch. And that wasn't because we started at zero at the beginning of the batch. It's because we started higher. But we looked at it and said, Y Combinator gives so much value. We're going to get access to the best mentors in the business. We're going to be pushed to grow, and in ways that it's hard to do yourself. You need those types of operating cadences, and we're going to get access to mentorship, and we're going to get access to an alumni network that can help us and give advice and all these things. And we highly valued those things. I'll also say I was like worried about raising money, like how to raise money. I've never done it. We bootstrapped for 5 years. I know nothing about raising capital, but I know Y Combinator is the best at teaching entrepreneurs how to raise capital in pretty much any environment. And so all of that was interesting to us. But I actually think that we got even more out of Y Combinator than many early stage companies do, because we had some scale and because we had worked through some problems. We were solving different business problems for ourselves than many people in our batch. And Y Combinator was an amazing catalyst for us in so many different ways. And there are a lot of different incubators and accelerators. My co-founder took his prior company through Techstars, and that was a good experience as well. But YC was just an amazing thing where if I ever start another company, I'm doing Y Combinator again, hands down. And they still provide value to us today, where we still hop on calls with our YC partners. We're leveraging all of the tools and resources that they have, even post batch a couple years ago.
Okay, so as I know that YC takes some equity, I know that you raised 2 rounds of funding at 1.7 and 3.8, and as far as the total value money raised in the round. So you've given up a fair share of equity, plus you have a co-founder. But what does that look like for you? Have you been able to hold majority as the original founder?
Yes. So I'm currently still the majority holder, and because we bootstrapped for so long, my co-founder and I really set ourselves up to maintain control of the company through multiple rounds of funding into the future.
Elaborate on that. How did you do that? How did you set yourselves up to be able to maintain control through multiple rounds? Is it because of the high valuation on the first round, or tell me more about that?
Yeah, so one of the benefits of Y Combinator is you do give up some equity, but they give you a great deal. They set you up to be able to raise capital in ways that they earn their equity like right away, because YC companies tend to have a premium valuation coming out of YC that's probably beyond where their revenues support. And so you actually take less dilution when you do raise that seed round. And that was our experience. We also raised initial money on safes, which don't give pretty much any formal rights to investors. It's going to convert to equity when you raise a priced round. And so we saved on some dilution because we got a higher valuation coming out of YC. We raised on safe notes, which gave us, we weren't giving away rights. When we raised this next round, it was through safes and convertible securities as well. And that was the first time that we took somebody onto the board. And so we have a 3-person board, and really structured it so that even when we go raise our Series A, it's going to remain a 3-person board, and the founders not only remain in control of the board, but we also still maintain majority equity in the business, and that can carry through to even a further round of funding if needed.
So guys, by the way, I'll just interject here. A safe note stands for simple agreement for future equity, SAFE, simple agreement for future equity. And it's a very common form of fundraising in VC land. Very common in VC land.
Yeah, and so all of that kept us so that we, as founders, maintain control both of the board and just majority of the company along the way. One of the benefits of bootstrapping is that, ironically, like, you don't have to have billion-dollar exits to have good outcomes for founders. And I know you had this experience in your startup where you were a bootstrapper, and if your business is a bootstrapped business, you can have a lower outcome and have good financial outcomes that are larger than some venture-backed companies that have raised a ton of money. And so for us, that's actually left a lot of options open where we can keep going that VC path and build for larger and larger business outcomes. And at the same time, we don't have to have good financial incentives for founders and early employees. So we've kind of left ourselves the optionality to go either way, depending on how we're building the business and how we want to build the business, and to control the destiny.
This episode is going to be gold and so insightful and helpful for budding entrepreneurs that are figuring out, do I bootstrap? Do I raise money? If I raise money, do I go VC or just do friends and family and then go private equity? Like, wow, this is awesome stuff. So Shane, let's now turn the tables. Any questions for me? You're at a fun stage of going into high growth, and I've kind of been there, done that now. So any questions? I've also been through the exit path. So ask me whatever you want.
I have a couple questions that come to mind that I'd love your insights on. I mean, obviously you've been through that, a little bit of that exit path, and would love to understand how that came to be. How did those conversations begin? What did that look like? And then I probably have some other questions to ping you on as well, but that might be an interesting starting place if you're open to it.
I would say that if you build a business of value, the buyers will start knocking on your door. And I say that only because I've experienced it both with Get Found First and with Stu Kent. So the beauty of that is you keep learning about what other people value your business at. Like early stage, you're raising money and you're saying, I think the business will someday have a buyer that thinks it's worth X, Y, or Z, and that today we're worth X, Y, right? And the fact is, when people come to you and say, hey, we're interested, you can act interested in selling. And in turn, they're going to start throwing numbers at you, and you get an idea of where the market is. In our first scenario with Get Found First, my hand was kind of forced. My partner got to a place where he could not run the business anymore. And I had to choose, like, find a new partner, hire a general manager, or just wash my hands. And I knew at that point in the life of Get Found First that Stu Kent was going to go to the moon, which is, startups with Stu is all about taking your startup to the moon. So I love talking about that, but I knew that was going to happen for Stu Kent, and I knew Get Found First, having a nice little payday and not worrying about it would be a good thing for my scenario. And so we already had a partner that we were doing a lot of work business with Get Found First. And I just went to them and said, hey, I'm going to try to sell the business. Are you interested? Yes, we're interested. And we quickly came to a deal. Like, it just worked out and worked well. I probably could have gotten a better payday if I had shopped it and tried to get a lot of buyers interested. But I was already, like I said, aware of Stu Kent's future big success. I knew that was coming. Like, in my soul, I knew I was going to go big with Stu Kent. And so I went ahead and sold it. The new owner has now taken Get Found First to the Inc. 5000 list for the last 4 years in a row. So good for you, Michael Johnson. Super proud of what you've done with Get Found First. But with Stu Kent, the buyers started coming early, like really early, like 3 or 4 years in. Once you hit the Inc. 5000 list, you get investors calling you literally multiple times a day for a while. And then it slows down. And then you hit the Inc. 5000 list again, and they get bigger and bolder every time. And investment bankers came to me. When the investment bankers come, you've hit a different level, because the investment bankers go, we see that your business will have multiple buyers, and we want to represent businesses that will have multiple buyers, because then it creates a higher valuation because they're all bidding and competing. And the investment bankers that we used for Stu Kent are Vista Point Advisors out of the Silicon Valley. Highly recommend. Jeff Koons, shout out to you, and Mike Greco. Great, great folks over there at Vista Point Advisors. They brought, get this, 70 interested buyers. Off of the 70, we narrowed it down to like 36 that we got a little more serious with. Narrowed it down to 12, narrowed it down to 3. And each of those narrow down times was another chance for them to bid on our business. And so it drove the value of our business up. And the investment bankers, whoever you hire to help you sell your business, one of the big parts of the value they add is they know what businesses are currently trading at. They can tell you businesses that we have sold that are like your business in the last 2 years have sold in a multiple range of this to this. And they told us, like, if you sell today, I don't recommend it, but if you did sell today, this is what you would get. So I recommend you wait 9 months, then come talk to us again, and we'll be able to get you this. If you deliver on what you're saying you're going to deliver with your projections, we'll get you this. And sure enough, they delivered, man. So it was awesome. By the way, we had 3 final bidders, chose the second highest bidder, not the highest bidder, because we liked the second highest bidder's approach to doing business with their founders they were acquiring. So it's been really good to work with the partners at Tritium Partners, who are the private equity group that bought into Stu Kent. And so hopefully now we've added some cool value for entrepreneurs in categories and things they may not have considered, whether that's the Techstars YC Combinator incubator style approach, and also as it relates to considering an exit and how to go about knowing what the value of your business will be.
And for you, like, you start getting these calls from the investment bankers, and you're like, okay, this is a really interesting sign. What was the triggering point, and like, what caused you to really take those calls seriously and say, yeah, I think I would consider selling the business right now, to even start picking up the phone and talking to them in the first place and running a process?
I think that you have to ask yourself, like, okay, what's going to happen with valuations? What's going to happen with the economy? What's going to happen with taxes if I sell now versus later? Every new presidency has seemed to change the taxes as it relates to selling small business shares. So most startups, I recommend, especially if they're planning on being investor friendly and raising money, that they become a Delaware C corporation or a Wyoming or Nevada corporation. I think now are two more highly recommended states. But in becoming a C corporation and selling shares, the investor and you, if you hold on to those shares for a minimum of 5 years before you sell them, those shares can be sold and not taxed. And it's an incentive that the government is trying to give investors to give money to small businesses to help them grow. And I think it's a very wise tax incentive. Those are things to be considering when it's time to sell. For me also, like, how long do I want to run this thing and be the grinder driver of the business versus maybe not? For me, by the way, like when I did my deal, I thought I could still run this thing for another decade. Like I'd be happy to do that. And I think we can grow it for another decade. But I want to take some chips off the table. I had put all of my chips into Stu Kent. Lindsay and I, here we are coming up on 38 years old, and I still don't have a single stock or 401k or any. I sold my little 401k to help start Stu Kent, right? So just had nothing except the value of that business. And so to take some chips off the table and decide like, okay, I'm going to have a payday now, and it'll set me up for a great life in the future for myself, for my kids, my grandkids. And now whatever it becomes, I'll own a smaller piece, but that next payday is going to be great too. Right. And bigger probably than the first one. So, yeah, I think they're all things to consider. I don't have all the answers for everyone. I think everyone's life and situation is unique and different. But by the way, here's like fun, Shane, I think you'll find this funny. And I think people that are in the world of sales will find this interesting. The way that I chose my investment banker, right? I happened to have a 3.5 hour drive from Idaho Falls to Salt Lake. And this guy calls me like right before I'm about to get in the car. And I'm like, hey, I don't usually take your calls, but I have time. I'm going to be on the road. If you want to call me sometime between here and here, if I see a call from California, I'll answer and take your call. And he wasn't pushy at all. He's like, look, I'll do a pro bono analysis for free. I'll just tell you what I think your business is worth today. And he talked baseball with me, got my attention there. But like timing was everything for that guy. And the fact that he built a cool relationship of trust with me, that he pitched for USC, I was like, I'm into baseball. This is fun. I like talking with him about this stuff. And so it didn't mean money for him yet. The money for that deal actually came for him like 1.5 years or almost 2 years later from that original phone call.
Interesting.
But I gave him time because he happened to catch me when I had time. So follow-up is so important because you may not catch me when I have time and I'm just not going to pay attention to you. But when I have time, all of a sudden you can have my attention. And it's not that I didn't like you the first time or didn't think you could sell me something of value, just didn't have time yet. So follow-up is so critical for sales.
That's amazing. I love that.
And I share that because I think for all entrepreneurs, if you don't understand that, you're missing out.
You recently also went through the process of bringing in like a new CEO for the business. You know, you went through that process of, hey, I can run this thing for another decade. What were the factors that kind of led to, hey, I think I might, bring in another CEO and let them kind of take the helm for this next wave of the business?
Lifestyle more than anything. From 30 to 40, I was grinding, and my kids, I was there for them. I don't think that they would say, oh, dad was never around, he was a bad dad or anything like that. But I just wanted to be even more involved, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to just go to the games. I wanted to help coach the games, and I wanted to not go home at night thinking about the board meeting tomorrow all night versus go home and just be there and be present.
Yeah.
And I knew that the value of the business was going to go and grow with or without me now. And I think every entrepreneur should always be thinking about like, how do I get my business to a place where with or without me, it's going to grow and be successful. And so I told the board after 2.5 years of continuing forward, I told the chair, I think it's time for me to move on and for us to find a new CEO. and I'm happy to stay on the board, happy to stay involved at some level, but I don't want to do the day-to-day CEO life, and I don't want to have the stress of prepping for board calls every quarter. And it was a really good life lesson for me to go through that process. It was really good professionally and career-wise for me to go through the 2.5 years of running board meetings and prepping my executive team for those. And it's also really nice to just show up at them and let the new executive team report to me. Right. So, I think watching your baby be taken care of by someone else is a little scary. Right. But for me, I'm glad I've done it.
Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. I think that's a not often talked about topic, but it's important.
Yeah. And I think here's another thing that I don't think is talked about very often as it relates to having an exit. And that is that you want the payday. The payday is impressive and fun and exciting and life-changing. And then it's like, okay, but where else is your money going to grow faster than in your high growth startup that's worth a lot of money that people are paying you this kind of these big checks, right? And so you have that to figure out. You have to go put your money to work elsewhere, which for a lot of people is really fun. I find some fun in it. I find it really frustrating and annoying and disappointing in other aspects, right? And so you have to be prepared for figuring out what to do with this new life. And there is no playbook, bro, for that level of paycheck. And everyone does different things with it. Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm still very glad I did it.
Amazing. This has been so fun, Stu.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Shane, for being with us today and for sharing your journey with us. Before we part, where is Boostly going to be in 3 or 4 years? What's the vision?
If we look forward to the end of 2029, our goal is that year we want to be doing 50 million in annual revenue, and our whole statement is we're doing 50 million in annual revenue. We've done over $500 million in annualized restaurant sales for our customers, and that we've accelerated the career of every team member that's worked with us. Those are the things that are really crucial to us. Obviously we need to do revenue, but that's only to the point that we're providing an insane amount of value for our customer base. And so that's really front and center for us. And my co-founder and I built the business to provide people who come and work with us personal and professional growth opportunities. And so end of 2029, that's what we're shooting for. And along the way, it's kind of measuring those 3 things of revenue, restaurant sales, and career growth for our team.
Awesome. Well, Shane, thank you so much for being with me today. This has been all my pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed yourself as well.
It's been a blast. Thanks so much for hosting this.
Thanks for joining me on Startups with Stu. We have big goals to help millions of entrepreneurs. If you enjoyed this show, please take a minute to share it with someone else that needs to hear it, or leave a review. Remember, success is within reach for those who dare to dream big and take action. Until next time, keep pushing forward on your entrepreneurial journey.